In ancient India, the sages or the rishis produced a method in which life was structured into 4 different sections. They were called chaturashramas, which helped them to develop a proper foundation on which a beautifully organized life could stand upon. Without an organized system, there is no organized life. Without an organized life, there cannot be an organized society. It will be a mess everywhere. So this was the first step. The second step, it is prioritization at an early stage. Before investing our time and energy, we must prioritize our works according to their necessities. Let me tell you a story. A student was asked to fill a jar with rocks, pebbles, sands, and water at the same time. Thinking it was impossible, he put the pebbles first, then the water. Later, there was no space for rock and the sand. Then the teacher smiled and showed the right way. He put the rock first, then the pebbles, then the sands, and finally the water. All of them fit properly. They slipped right through the gaps, one after another. This is the beauty of order and prioritization. If we prioritize our work properly, which needs to be done first and which later, which at what time, then we can enjoy the best of all worlds. But while doing this, we must also consider that we don't fall into the pit hole of analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis is when we waste too much time on analysis instead of doing. The third point, or the third step, is to learn from different experiences and to know how to link each other. Even though the events of our life may be different, some bring us joy, some despair, some make us angry, but what is common in all of them is the experience, the knowledge that we can acquire for our being and becoming. We can gather as much experience of life from our own events, and we can link the common knowledge among them and fulfill each other. This podcast was all about finding a balance between the work life, the personal life, and the social life. Every balance needs a pivot. Even if the weights of a seesaw, both sides, the weights are placed and they are undulating, the pivot or the center stays at one place. This is the place of a living ideal in our life. It can work wonders. Doing everything sacramentally or with a sense of devotion and piety always makes the work easier and fulfilling. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Master Within podcast. In this episode, we have learned what causes our work-life disbalance and how we can deal with it. You can access the show notes of this episode by visiting masterwithin.org/podcast or by the link we have provided in the episode description. You can subscribe to this show wherever you get a podcast from, be it Spotify, JioSaavan, Gaana, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, etc. I hope you've learned something. And if you did, please let us know your biggest takeaway from this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or just email us. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.